Okay, fine. In that case, you've restarted the recording, and I'd like to say good afternoon to everybody again and welcome them to the set up meeting of the Education Skills and Scrutiny Committee on the 14th of October that was adjourned briefly due to a major Microsoft error. So we'll be rejoining the agenda, going back to the Cabinet papers following a roll call in order to check that everybody's able to get back into the meeting and who's in attendance. So I'm Sonia Reynolds, Councillor Reynolds, and I'm present, and I'll pass you across to Democratic Services Officer Charlotte in order for the roll call.
Thanks, Chair. Marked you as present. I've had apologies from Councillor Ridian Mason. Matthew Crowley.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Sian Harris.
Present.
Councillor Jane Jones.
Present, Charlotte.
Dennis Keogh.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Sandra Miller.
Present, Charlotte.
Yes, Councillor Rebecca Phillips.
Present.
Councillor Mark Prothero. I don't think he's in attendance and I've marked his apologies. Councillor Suzanne Renkes.
Present.
Councillor Anthony Richards.
Present, all present.
Councillor Dave Whitelock.
Present, thank you, Charlotte.
Councillor Rob Wood.
Present.
Councillor Joe Hale.
Present, thank you, Charlotte.
And then co-opted members, Marie Cardick.
Present. Sorry, present, Charlotte.
Rito de Benedictus. Adam Moore. Linda Newman.
Present, Charlotte.
Cabinet members, Councillor Alan Lockyer.
Present, Charlotte.
Peter Rees.
Present, Charlotte.
And then officers, I've had apologies from Andrew Thomas, Chris Millis.
Present, thank you, Charlotte.
And Guy.
Present, thanks, Charlotte.
And Crowhurst.
Present, Charlotte.
Harry Jones.
Present, Charlotte.
And Heaney.
Present, Charlotte.
Michelle Trigg.
Present, Charlotte.
Liam Spooner Cleverley.
Present, Charlotte.
Paul Walker.
Present, Charlotte, thank you.
Daly. Mike Daly.
Oh, present, Charlotte, sorry.
Tammy Davis.
Present.
Have I missed anyone out at all? No, then Chair, that's everyone.
Thank you, Charlotte. In that case, we'll work on from the scrutiny agenda and move to the curriculum reform update. This report was requested by scrutiny members, and I believe it's being presented by Chris Millis and Mike Daly. If officers don't have anything further to say, we'll move to questions, but Chris and Mike, if you'd like to comment, please do.
No, Chair, we are happy to take any questions in relation to the report.
Okay, I have no other questions indicated apart from myself, so my apologies for that. I'm going to dominate this a bit, but just first off wanted, and we were as a committee, although I've got a hand up from Dave Whitelock now, as a committee, I think we need to congratulate the staff internally and in our schools for the amazing work that's been going on in order to achieve good results from ESTIN and a good response from people in terms of how the schools and everybody are working to be ready to implement what is an exciting new curriculum moving forward and could have, hopefully will have great benefits for pupils. Having said that, I wanted to ask a question about page 8, which is linked to, it says on there, Wales will continue to be implementing in primary schools, maintained nursery schools and non-maintained nursery settings from September 2022. I was wondering if someone could clarify exactly what is meant by non-maintained nursery settings.
Chris, do you want to?
Yeah, it's no problem. Our maintained nursery settings are those that are situated within the school boundary, so it's part of the school. And then the non-maintained nursery settings would be those that are privately run, for example, through Flying Start or private company. So the curriculum for Wales applies to those as well.
Can I ask if they've been receiving the same sort of levels of support for staff, etc.?
They don't sit, Chair, within our remit to support. They're not part of our CIW would, for example, they would be part of that. Non-maintained settings don't come under us, Chair.
I am a little concerned that so I'm assuming we're not aware then as to what the situation is within non-maintained nurseries, or do we get an update from CIW? Or
there's a slight overlap with this, Chair. We have some staff, for example, we have a department that would look after and oversee our early years settings, our Flying Start settings and that side of things. This report is about the delivery of the curriculum for Wales in our statutory responsibility, like as an ESO service. So this is where we have delivered the service to the maintained settings that come under our governance. Thank you, Chris. I'll pursue what's happening there outside the meeting then, if I may. Certainly, Chair. I'll pick that up, Chair. No problem. We need things to join up and be sure that we're preparing our kids appropriately, I think.
Would it help if I just explained as well that new assessment arrangements have currently under consultation? They close at the end of the month. And one of the aspects within that is that all schools must deal with wherever children are transitioning from and transitioning to. So schools, it's going to be incumbent on schools to form relationships with wherever their children are coming from, and obviously then on to secondary schools, and they need to plan, and governors will, in the consultation document, it's saying that governors will need to plan for that transition. So those conversations about how progress from nursery into schools, what's that look like and how's that going to take place, that's part of the assessment arrangements. So it's currently under consultation, and that, I'm not sure if that answers the question, but there is an emphasis on looking at that.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to ask the Cabinet member if he wants to say anything on this, and then go to Dave Whitelock, Councillor Whitelock.
Thank you, Chair. I'll wait until everybody else has spoken. I just wanted to add something at the end, Chair.
Certainly, Councillor Rees. Councillor Whitlock.
Yeah, it's not a question as such, Chair, and had time to look back over it again now with the break. In the background in the beginning on page 7, it's responding to two clear challenges for us as an authority. Impacts of COVID-19 on learners and preparing reform. Surely the staff should be mentioned in there as well. It's not just the learners in the school. I know that this hasn't come from our officers, it's come from on high. So if anybody speaks to anybody in the Welsh Government, possibly a timely reminder there are staff in the schools as well. Thank you.
Did you want to respond to that at all, Chris or Mike?
Fair point, well made.
Fair point. Yeah.
In that case, my second question is clarification, really, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot. I had heard of metacognition before on page 12, and understand what it means. I just read that bullet point 4. There is a clear link between the language of the purposes and the language of metacognition, and thought, pardon? And I wondered if anybody would like to clarify.
I'll have a go. So when you look at what it means, so you have the 4 purposes of the new curriculum, And for example, that we would want our children to be ambitious and capable learners, or ethical and informed, enterprising and creative, healthy and confident. When you look at the characteristics of what it means to be each one of those, okay, the language within it matches with the language of teaching children how to be learners. So the language that's required to be a learner. So what do we mean when we tell a child, go and explore? What does it mean to explore? Does a child understand what that means, or to express themselves, or to be creative? And how do we develop children's ability to have a repertoire of skills that they can call upon to use when they encounter a new problem, or they have a problem to solve, or they encounter a new situation, not just in school, but when they leave school and become adults and enter the world of work and what have you. So it's making sure that the language of the 4 purposes matches with the language of learning.
So that's another plus, Estin, actually saying we appear to be getting it right.
We've made a really clear link between the language of learning, and that we have to be explicit in teaching children how to become learners, that they're not just passive recipients of knowledge. Knowledge is important, but they have to learn how to solve problems, how to be creative, how to analyze, how to evaluate. We have to explicitly teach that in order for them to become ambitious and capable, healthy and confident, and so on.
Thank you, Mike. That's helpful. Okay. In that case, I'll move to the Cabinet Member. Peter, if you'd like to.
Yeah, just on this point, Chair, I had notification this morning about the changes to the GCSE, which is part of the new curriculum proposals, that they're going to be a new launch of English and maths, English literature and English language being amalgamated, maths and numeracy being amalgamated, and there's a whole list of less traditional subjects. I just wanted to alert people to the fact that GCSEs will change and is part of this curriculum reform, Chair. I don't know if Mike or Chris want to say anything about that.
Mike, Chris?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the things I think one of the things Peter is referring to there is the fact that at the moment they're asking schools to participate in the design of these qualifications, and that head teachers and teachers help to form what they're going to look like, and so that everything is in alignment. So everything that I was just talking about teaching children to be learners, the language that we use, how we assess children's progress, we have to make sure that the qualifications at the end of their time in school align with that thinking, because otherwise, if they don't, you can't blame teachers if they then teach to the test rather than teach to the purposes, which are bigger and broader. If that makes sense.
Thank you. I think Dave, Chris, you're asking to come back in.
Thank you, Chair. And just to follow up on what Peter said, we will be bringing a report to this committee outlining the changes of assessment, GCSE's reports, when things settle a little bit. So we will be bringing a report to you explaining all the nuances, all the different changes and everything. But the document is new to us as well. So we will have the time to digest it, speak with our school colleagues, and then we'll bring you back a report.
Thank you. Councillor Whitlock. Dave?
No, I haven't indicated, Chair.
Right. Oh, your hand was up on my screen, sorry. Peter, is that a legacy hand?
They're down on our screens, Chair.
They're
Right,
down,
okay,
Chair. They're down
you.
on my...
Thank you. No, gone now. So it's it gets very confusing sometimes when you can't see whether they're there or not. Right, in that case, can I thank officers for the report as we requested? I believe Cabinet Scrutiny members said they found it interesting, and thank you for the work that's gone into it. And we'll move on, therefore, to the Cabinet papers if people would like
to. That report is for noting, that's all.
Yeah, it was a request for information and just for noting for the scrutiny. It's not going to Cabinet Board, as far as I'm aware. So in that case, we move to the Cabinet Papers. And the first item for scrutiny is the Q1 quarterly performance reports. And again, I have no other questions other than my own. I'm sorry about this. That's again, I wanted to congratulate staff on such rapid reopening. I know we've covered a lot of the culture and leisure venues with the Culture and Leisure subcommittee, but congratulate staff on the rapid reopening of services and the work that's been done during the pandemic and post-pandemic in order to get things or keep things running and get things back up and running in various ways. And to the staff for the work that they've done moving into other activities like track and trace and similar during that time. So just a very quick congrats and thank you for that. If I can then move on to the item 002 on page 12, number of full daycare childcare places provided. Can someone clarify that's number of places available as opposed to actually utilised? Is it, or have I got that wrong?
I think I'll cover that one off, Chair, if that's okay. I know Angeline is also on the call, but as far as we can, it's technically both, Chair. And we are mindful of some of the providers have closed because of COVID, and we have maintained a sort of a relationship with those that can offer childcare places. So you're right on both counts. It's a reduction of the availability and the take-up. And the reason it's the reduction of take-up is because people were keeping their children at home with them because they weren't in work. So therefore, they didn't need to access childcare. It's starting to pick up again, and we are watching that as well as people have returned to work. But I think following on from working from home, furlough, and unfortunately unemployment, some of the places have not been taken up again because the child remains at home or with a family member.
My question was sort of a bit more, basically, I thought the numbers were quite high if it's people actually particularly during 2021 and earlier this year, actually using places. So it appears to me to be the places that were available for use as opposed to the places that people have actually used, because I'm aware that take up dropped. Well, nurseries were closed for a period apart from key staff and vulnerable families. So is that the case? Is that what you're saying?
I'll have to check for you, Chair. I'd rather not say something that may be infactual. So I'll ask Angeline to pick that up with Alison Harris, and we'll get that, because it's a recorded session, we'll get that answer to you and circulated. Thank you.
Okay, and the other question was on /117, which is the Communities for Work, which may be more applicable under the report, but I read the papers in sequence, so it comes up here. And that's, I'm assuming that the large take up in the 16 to 24-year-olds, and am I assuming correctly, is partially linked to the Kickstart developments, but I could be wrong, and I wondered if there was any further information on that.
Chair, Kerry Jones is on the call, so I'm going to ask Kerry, because she manages that programme, if she can remember. Otherwise I'll check that for you, not a problem at all.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Reynolds, which page were you referring to?
Page 13, CP/117.
Yeah, I'm not actually aware of the fact that the 16 to 24-year-olds were predominantly kickstart places. However, we have had kickstart placements within that age bracket. So I need to check with DWP figures on that, and I can come back to you, but it's a bit of both.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Thanks for your help. Okay, there are no other questions on that, but as I say, the figures, whilst we fully understand the gaps, they look good for restarting services. If we move on to our next item, which is item 9 on the agenda, the Welsh Medium Grants. And I understand Rhiannon Crowhurst will be presenting the report. I don't know if you have anything you want to say, Rhiannon?
Not really. I think the report is quite self-explanatory. We're basically just asking for permission to submit an expression of interest application. And should we get the award from Welsh Government, we will then need to come back to members to look at some of the more statutory processes around the 3 projects that we put in. So this is really just asking permission to go forward with it.
Thank you. I have questions established from Councillor Spooner and others, and I'll take them in sequence. So, Councillor Marcia Spooner.
Thank you, Chair. They were more sort of asking for clarification rather than anything else. That's a really good proposal in here. But can I have an update on Ysgol Gymraeg Pontardawe and the work going on there? Because the report does say that it's stopped and the company is to receive it. So I'm just wondering what we're looking now and what we'll be doing to sure when we move on, I guess we manage to do it.
Yeah, yes, no problem at all. We were up there last Friday actually, just to have a look at it. We are at the process now of appointing new contractors. There is a report due to one of the cabinet boards, I'm not sure which one. Our environment colleagues are doing it, to go forward to be able to appoint these people to carry on with the work. And what we're hoping is that the interior works will be finished by Christmas. And there'll still be a little bit of work to do on the exterior then, on the fields, reinstating the football fields and things like that, the rugby fields and the paths. They should be done probably by Easter if the weather is on our side through the winter. So it's been a real disappointment. It's the only project that I've been involved with, that SIP have been involved with, that hasn't been delivered on time and within budget. It's really been a nightmare project. It's all gone wrong. But thankfully, we seem to have been over the worst of it now. We've got an end in sight, and the school have been really good working with us on it as well. So hopefully by Christmas, those children should be able to be, back in these new classrooms ready for the new year.
I'm looking forward though, and obviously this may not come into your remit, but if we are going to have these grant schemes, how do we work to ensure that we get contractors? Because everybody's in the same problem now, and say, it's delaying supply chain, finding workers. What do we do, or what are we doing to try and mitigate as much as we can, I suppose?
Yeah, it's really difficult, and one of the problems we've had putting this report together is that we're using baseline figures from Welsh Government, which were pre-COVID, and we all know, and so do Welsh Government, that the prices have gone up and supplies are difficult. But they're aware of that, and they know that these bids that are coming in are based on those figures, and if we have to go back and get more, then that's what we'll do. In terms of contractors, we have a very strict process of going through to procure contracts for bids such as these, £1 million and more. We were just really unlucky, and I think COVID didn't help. The company was struggling before. Once COVID hit, it really knocked them, and that was the end of that, and they were a very well-established company. WRW have been working for years and have done lots and lots of big projects. So it was just pure bad luck that happened when it did, But yeah, it's hard to say, and it's hard to say that we can mitigate against it in the future, because we just don't know what's going to happen, do we? And all we can do is take all the safeguards that we've got built into our systems when we procure these people, and just hope it doesn't happen again.
Thank you, Rhiannon. You all right with that, Councillor Spooner?
Yeah, that's it. Can I ask one more question, please?
Certainly.
And that's more to do with the Coed-Darcy development that I remember being a councillor back in 2008-9 we were talking about this grant scheme and nothing seems to have happened there. I welcome the using Abbey Primary, you know, to get more Welsh medium schools in the area. That's great. But is there anything we can do? Just as the developers haven't said when they'll deliver, is there anything sort of into planning or something that, because it was as far as I understood, it was part of the planning process at the time.
Yeah, it is part of the planning process, and there's been a lot of conversations going on between planning and the developers. But we're still at this point. It is so frustrating. It is causing so many problems for us because of the numbers, the pupil growth in the area, you know. But they just seem to be dragging their heels. I don't know if there's anything we can do to put some pressure on them. If there is, please do it. But I know our planners are really working hard to try and get something, you know, in writing from them, because what happens, you know, they were going to build us, I don't know, 2 or 3 schools 15 years ago. Now it's down to 1, and they're arguing about how big that school should be, you know. So they just seem to be going back and forth all the time. But yeah, you know, ideally that's what we would want. A brand new school in Coed would be perfect, but we can't wait any longer for them to deliver it, and this is the second best option, really.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Thank you. In that case, we'll move to Councillor Rebecca Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. Diolch. I'm not sure, I might have I needed to declare interest because obviously I'm a governor at Ysgol Gynradd Gymraeg Trebanos. If we could sort that out, Charlotte, please. Yeah, obviously fully support the aims of this grant. We all know that investment is much needed in our Welsh medium schools. Just in terms of Ysgol Rhosafan and the previous unsuccessful application, could we have maybe more detail on the reasoning why that was, and why we think this application is going to be successful this time, please?
Yeah, just before this grant came out last time, we had an increase in infant class size capital grant as well. And at the time, we knew that Rhosafan were, you know, were filling up in the foundation phase. They were squashing children in. And so we applied for the infant class size grant, some work, and we put in an application for a 4 classroom extension. Then when the Welsh Medium grant came out, we suddenly realised that there was an opportunity really to build them a new school. So we applied for that as well. Unfortunately, they granted the first bid, but they didn't grant the second one. So, but what we did do was incorporate that into our sort of future plans. That 4 classroom extension now will form part of the new school going forward. So we haven't wasted the money. It will, you know, it'll still stand. It'll stand. We built it at the back of the school where we imagine the new school will be built, and then, you know, we'll knock the old school down and have a bigger part at the front. So it is all part of a grant scheme, but we were just a bit unlucky there that grant came out first, you know. But yeah, I don't know if we'll be successful this time because we're asking for a lot of money. You know, it's a third of the grant. I would have one single bid in, but if we don't get that one, then we'll go for Band C. So Rhosafan will be built at some point or another. It's just, it would be great if it could be built out of this grant, a bit sooner, and it's 100% funded, so better all round.
Thank you. In terms of the other 2 grants then, I don't want to put you on the spot, Rhiannon, but obviously you're very experienced in this field. I just wanted to kind of gauge, you know, if you think they would be successful or not.
I think we've got a very good chance for the other 2, definitely. You know, I don't know, it's hard to say really, but yeah. I think there is certainly a strong case for the Neath site, because we're desperate for spaces there. But equally, I think, you know, ALN provision and childcare desperately needed, and that is an ideal place for it. That, you know, Trebanos, we don't want to close Trebanos, we want it to grow and we want it to flourish, and I think we're giving that message out by doing that. And Welsh Government know that. We've been in lots of conversations with them about it, and I hope that, you know, they'll support us to be able to do this. It's a tricky site, I will say that. We haven't had the easiest of meetings with our planners and things at the minute, but we'll have to see what happens.
Thank you, Diolch.
Thank you. I have indication from Councillor Matthew Crowley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I didn't have a question ordinarily, in pre-briefing about this, but Rhiannon raises some questions to me here now. I live on the boundary of Rosehaven. It's not in my ward, it's in Sandwich West, where I have close links to the school. My both children went there. But just to say, Rhiannon, obviously I had a bit of involvement in SIP projects just before I retired. But the reality is, for me, was the school, obviously when the bids were first put in, was it because of the backlog of maintenance? Is that what we say, that the school comes up its economic life at the end of its economic life, as it were?
Yes, it is about that. I will say that, it was built at a time when a lot of schools of that age now are starting to reach the end of their lifespan, and things like boilers and, mechanical and electrical work. So yes, it is in poor condition, but also we want to build it bigger. It's not big enough really to support the number of children that we know want to go there. So it's a bit of both, really.
If I could come back, Chair, if you don't mind, just one further question. Obviously, I worry about that because Tywyn Primary is exactly the same footprint of Rosehaven and Tymorfa as they were, as one school, and it was built within a year of each other, of Rosehaven and Tymorfa and of course Tywyn. So I'm going to keep my eye open if it's the case that the maintenance and the backlog of maintenance. I'm going to be scrutinising that to see that Tywyn gets exactly the same treatment going forward. Thank you, Rhiannon.
Yeah, if I can just come back and say, yeah, Tywyn is in an equally poor state, and Tywyn is on our list for looking at with Band C as well. It's quite a long list, unfortunately, but Tywyn is on that list.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Rhiannon. That's great.
Thank you. I'm aware that Councillor Rob Wood, who's been travelling and expected a bit of trouble getting into the meeting, wished to indicate that he was fully in support of the work on Rosehaven School, Oscar Rosehaven, and just wanted to be clear that that was his support he was giving there, and really positive to see it. So in that case, if there are no further questions, we'll move forward, and that report recommendation is on page 44. Scrolling through desperately, and the recommendation is that we approve the submission, or we are happy for Cabinet to approve the submission of an expression of interest, an application to Welsh Government for increasing Welsh medium provision capital grant funding in 22 to 26. Can I have a proposer?
I move, Chair.
And a seconder? Seconder.
I second that, Chair.
Thank you. And therefore,
Chair, you've moved it yourself. I don't.
Oh dear, yeah, trying. We move to the youth service update in that case, and that's Chris Millis and Angeline Spooner-Cleverly on again. Again, do you wish to say anything prior to questions?
No, thank you, Chair. We've also got Jason Heaney, the manager here as well from the youth service, happy to take any questions at all. You know how proud I am of our youth service, Chair.
Very much so. If we could therefore move to first questions, and I have notification from Sian Harris.
Hi. I just wanted to say apologies first of all if we have had this information, because back 4 years ago when we all became councillors and we had wads of stuff, you tend to only actually look through stuff when you need it. I've recently been contacted by one of the youth club leaders in Cryland, basically for some help with recruiting some children to come. So that's obviously work in progress. But when we were discussing with Charlotte and we were talking about all the different bits and bobs, I ended up then speaking to Joanne Fisher by email. And Joanne is telling me all about the things that the youth services offer to communities for engagement, which I was totally not aware that we had any of this on offer. I have now taken her up on one offer, and she actually came to a church fete with 2 of the youth leaders, and they offered some services. But I can't find anything that I've actually been given that information of things that we can access ourselves for our village regarding engagement.
Jason, are you happy to pick that one up?
Yeah, sure, Chris, thank you. If it would help, I could send a summary of the provisions around to elected members so you can see what the youth service does. It changes quite often because of grant funding, but I can send you this year's summary. Our open access provision is reduced significantly because of, again, funding, and mostly our work is targeted. But you can have a look, and we're always open to questions. We're always, if somebody wants to know more, then please contact the youth service. We do our best to get working and support as many young people as we possibly can, really. So
yeah, to be fair, the service they provided was really good. I just didn't know it was there on offer, that I could access it at all. And I apologise if I missed that, but it would have been nice to have that information if we hadn't had it. So yeah, be good.
I can circulate that.
Sorry, just to add as well, we do have a Facebook page, so that's updated quite often. So if you're on Facebook, that might be useful to have a little look at that. We have a newsletter as well, so we might be able to send you that. So you can see what's going on with, what's happening in the communities, of course. And if you'd like Jason and myself to have a chat with you online or whatever, same with all members, more than happy to do that piece of work as well. So sometimes you can ask specific questions when we talk to you. I think Jason would give you the information more than myself.
Yeah, well, I've had it all now from Joanne myself, so I know what I can do now moving on. I was just for everybody else, I don't know if everybody else is aware that we can access these provisions and because it was very good, to be fair.
Thank you. Yes, I'm your Facebook page and your Twitter feeds are very good from the youth service. Lots of information. Be really grateful if some of the links with voluntary youth clubs were promoted there as well as our own, because sometimes it's hard to let people know. So that would be good links. Councillor Crowley.
Thank you, Chair. I tell you what would be really useful, particularly for me, Jason, as if we could have a newsletter emailed to us. I assume all elected members would appreciate it. I certainly would, and especially about the youth service in my area. And just to comment on what Chris said, we're all very proud of the youth service, Chris. Thanks very much.
Chair, just really happy to do that. And going back to your question about the links as well, more than happy if you send us the links so we can add them onto our Facebook page.
Can we, someone notified wanting to ask a question about the issue with staff vacancies? And I haven't got them.
That was me, Chair. Thank you. Jason, I can't find the page at the moment. The recruitment of staff is, I know you're always looking for staff, but how is it going now? Because I know Bryn, especially in my area, has been closed even before the pandemic with staffing issues. But generally across the service, you do a fantastic job. But this recruitment, and must be said, retention seems an ongoing issue. Is there any sign of recruitment being, some of these posts being filled?
It's an ongoing. It's a problem that we've had in the youth service, in the part-time service in particular. Full-time service, not a problem retaining staff. It's when we've got people doing 2 hours on a Friday evening in areas, then that's where we find it difficult. Where it tends to work best is when you've got local people working in those areas. So that's why we've tried to see if we can recruit locally. And I think the likes of Joanne Fisher, who oversees our clubs, she has been asked then to contact members in those areas where we are struggling to see if we can fill those posts. In Bryn in particular, I had somebody come in, contact me yesterday asking if the vacancy was still there for the work in charge in Bryn. So hopefully we're going to be able to appoint there. That was a very difficult one to appoint. We've also had to appoint, say, a level 3 worker in charge, so a level 3 qualified youth worker to run a community centre. It's very difficult to find qualified people locally as well. So, it is a very difficult problem. We're not giving up on it. We're trying all different avenues to recruit these people. I've been in contact with universities to see if we can put people on placements there while they're doing their level 4, 5 and above. So it's just we're trying to look at new ways to recruit all the time on that.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. I know if you do ask the youth service for help and support on thinking of projects, etc., you do get it. There's been tremendous support from Jason, Kerry and Angeline for project work that we've been trying to take ahead for some of our community organisations, which didn't make it for the first bid we put in, but they helped with funding for the second. And hopefully we'll have a report on a pilot that may look at using local young people and training local young people in their communities to level 2 community and youth work coming out by March. So keep our fingers crossed. We're recruiting Kickstart trainees for that at the current time. So there is possible ways forward and possible things that we can do, and lots of help available if you ask. So thank you very much for that both. I've got no more questions, and we move on then in the agenda. Sorry, we've got to, the report is for noting. So we note that report and we move on in the agenda to the employability and skills programmes within education and leisure and lifelong learning, agenda item 13. I had a question just linking into that, and I haven't had any other notifications. And it was around the concerns over whether there were contingency plans, given the issues raised within the report about the ending of European funds and the lack of information so far on levelling up, and the fact that the UK levelling up doesn't appear to have, UK government's levelling up funds don't appear to have been actually finalised for the current projects that are in for them, as far as I'm aware, and I'm happy to be updated on that, which was supposed to start in September and finish by March. However, you know, we are looking as well at the RDP, but that's going to be less than it was, I'm sure. And we're aware that the levelling up fund won't be nearly the amount that was available from Europe across the UK. So I wondered if there are any contingency funds about how we take forward some of those excellent employability programmes in the borough and the region. Thank you.
Can I come in? Is that okay? You're completely right, Councillor. I think it is a worry in terms of timescales and slipping timescales. Currently, for our employability projects, we have funding to carry through, and Kerry will remind me of the timescale for one of ours. Welsh Government have given us a continuation in terms of timescales, so we're not concerned in terms of employability at the moment that things will drop off before others come in. As you said, with the new sort of funding that's coming out, you're right, again, we're still waiting to hear. I sat in the Generation Board meeting a week or so ago, and Simon Brennan, I haven't heard any more because obviously Simon is kind of looking after that in his directorate. Still waiting on that, as you know. We're still, what are we in October, should have heard by July, some people would know, still waiting on it. So it's a bit disappointing that we are still waiting for that kind of money. As a team, in terms of my service areas, which encompasses employability, adult community learning, youth service, and some of the early years stuff, we are starting to plan around gaps that we have so that we're not just waiting for the money that we have from Welsh Government. So we are doing some of that work to look at gaps in terms of things like needs and other gaps that we need to identify in our service areas. So I'm trying to really plan ahead. I know it's difficult because we're all really busy. We've all been recovering from COVID, which is still around. But we're trying to do that piece of work so that we've got greater synergy, and that we're not waiting, like I said, for that money to come, you know, from us, from WG. We are in conversation with Welsh Government as well, because I know they are keen to look at where employability will be moving forward. So we are hoping that we'll have a more of a joined up situation with all the employability projects. So they do keep in regular contact with Kerry, and Kerry will update me with regard to employability. And also we work with Workways Plus to make sure that we're joined up that end as well. So I'm not too concerned at the moment in terms of the employability funding. I think it will come. It's the slippage in terms of timescales is my concern. You mentioned RDP as well. That is something, as you know, we're lobbying to try and continue. It is something that there may be a gap in terms of that funding coming through, and we're still waiting and lobbying to see where we will be with that. But again, that's on my radar in terms of things I need to consider between now and March. So there are pieces of work going on to try and make sure there is a continuum of support for our people and communities. Happy to keep you updated. Please come to me if you want to have conversations about any issues you have, in your heads, really.
Thank you, Angeline. That's very reassuring. Although the picture doesn't look that positive, but it's very reassuring that the thinking's going on and things are being sorted going forward. And thank you very much for all the work. In that case, we have that report as well for noting. And that brings us to the end of the agenda for the Cabinet, and we'll move back to the forward look on the scrutiny papers. Has anybody got anything they wish to raise on the forward look?
No, Chair, just there for noting.
Yep. Okay. In that case, we note that. Urgent items, we have none. So it's falls to me to thank you for your attendance and move forward with closing the meeting, and seek some colleagues in the Cabinet Board. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.